The public education system in Texas is huge and critical to the future of our state. Smart planning and adequate funding are essential to making the system work for each and every Texan. Where does the money for public education come from? Let's break it down. First, think of funding schools like filling up a glass of water. The water in the glass represents the amount of money the Texas legislature allocates to educate each student. The water is sourced from two primary pitchers. The first is school district revenue generated by local property taxes. The second is state funds, which are generated by things like sales taxes, business taxes, and a portion of lottery proceeds. The water glass has the ability to shrink or grow. But many people are surprised to learn that the size of a Texas school district's water glass, or how much money is available for and spent on day-to-day school operations, is decided almost entirely by the state legislature, not school boards or superintendents. Funding formulas designed by the legislature provide school districts with general operating funds, most of which cover salaries for teachers and staff. Other parts of the funding formula are designated for specific priorities like career and technical programs, early childhood education, and more. While the state legislature decides how big the water glass is, how much money the state actually contributes is contingent on the amount of local property taxes generated by a school district. In our complex school funding system, when local property values go up and tax collections increase, local schools do not receive more funding. Instead, the state simply pours less water into the glass, even though more state funds were originally budgeted and intended for public education. But what happens if school district revenue generated by local property taxes is able to fill the whole glass? More water is poured than the glass size can hold. The state collects those overflowing funds in a separate water pitcher that holds general revenues for the state. So, when a school district's property tax revenues go up, those dollars are not always reinvested back into our schools. Instead, the state uses its newfound billions to pay for other items in the state budget, or simply holds on to the extra revenue. That doesn't seem right. Money intended for Texas public schools should stay in Texas public schools. Now that you know the basics of how Texas schools are funded, and that more money is available for public education, the next question is, are we adequately funding our Texas public schools? Proper funding is needed to prepare every student for a successful future. Texans have high expectations for our public schools, and that means our schools need to maintain their competitiveness with schools across the country. Let's dig a little deeper into how Texas stacks up and what is needed for our schools and our students to be successful. The per-student funding a district receives begins with a set dollar amount for each student. This is known as the basic allotment, which is set at $6,215. Schools receive additional funding based on specific student demographics and district characteristics. So, when you add up all these different funding allotments, the average school district in Texas receives about $10,800 per student per year. How does school funding in Texas stack up to the rest of the country? Despite our thriving economy and dramatic population growth, Texas still spends more than $4,000 below the national average and ranks in the bottom 10 states in per-pupil funding. Our glass could be bigger. It should be bigger. Much bigger. Florida invests $1,100 more per student. Illinois, $9,000 more. Louisiana spends $5,000 more. Michigan, $2,000 more. And New York spends $19,000 more per student than Texas. Even California, the only public school system larger than our own, spends $6,500 more per student than Texas. So, if school funding in Texas is like filling a glass of water, in Louisiana, it's more like filling up a jug of water. We are falling behind. Texas competes with these other states for qualified teachers exceptional workforce programs, and college readiness. Without properly funded public schools, Texas cannot compete. We impede student success, and we weaken the future economy of Texas. Texas is not investing enough in our public schools, and the funding districts receive has to support a number of programs and needs. A good way to understand how school districts allocate their resources is to look at how each dollar is spent, or how the money is poured into our schools. Right off the top, over half of every dollar covers instruction and paying teachers, the backbone of our public schools. The next largest budget category is facility maintenance. Public schools have large physical footprints, and keeping the lights on, the water flowing, the grass cut, and more requires significant resources. Together, paying teachers and maintaining facilities accounts for about 2/3 of public schools spending. The remaining third has to stretch a long way. About 15% of funds are provided for additional staff like nurses, counselors, principals, instructional coaches, and district administrators. Just under 10% goes towards basic student needs of transportation to and from school and student meals. Extracurricular programming, including the fine arts and athletic programs that inspire and cultivate student and family enthusiasm, accounts for about 3% of spending. Other needs, like IT infrastructure and school safety provisions, are covered by the remaining funds. This is how school funding supports and maintains well-running schools. As you can see, there isn't much room to trim. Our current school funding system doesn't account for inflation, and we've all felt the impact of rising inflation in our daily lives. Households and school districts have also had to tighten their belts like the rest of us. With increasing costs, operational necessities, high expectations, and little room to trim, every public school student suffers when inflation rises without sufficient additional support. With less buying power, all schools, even those in property-wealthy districts, will struggle to retain high-quality teachers, maintain safe and efficient facilities, and preserve programs our kids and families care about. A strong Texas economy depends heavily on student success in college, career, and military readiness. Without proper funding, Texas will fall behind. Public schools are foundational for our state's success. Money matters in education. Tell Texas lawmakers we must do better, because investing in public education is investing in the future of Texas.